but they did this independent study and they found that a state joining the compact is the single most effective measure a state can do to increase the number of practicing physicians in their state.
Welcome to RadCentral, a radiology podcast hosted by Excalibur Healthcare. I'm Laura.
I'm Betsy.
Today we're speaking with Marschall Smith, who is the Executive Director of the IMLC, the Interstate Medical Licensure Compact. Let's start off by, why don't you introduce yourself? How did you become the Executive Director there? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Thanks. Yeah, so my name again is Marschall Smith, and I'm the Executive Director with the IMLCC. I had a background. Often people ask if I'm a physician or, how I came to get into doing this kind of interesting, very niche kind of a process. And actually, my background is state government. I worked for the state of Colorado for a little over 30 years, and my last probably half of my career with the state was I ran the Colorado Medical Board, and then I ran the Colorado, at the Department of Health, I ran the EMS certification and air ambulance licensure. So I describe myself as a professional bureaucrat. I've been a bureaucrat all my life. I actually like government things, and I think one of the things that I've always enjoyed, and I've really been able to do it with the Interstate Medical Licensure Compact Commission, is finding ways to help people get through the processes. There are reasons why we have licensure. There are reasons why we create these bureaucracies, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't be able to gotten through easily, and they shouldn't be able to be navigatable. And it really, I think, I was at a point in my career with the state of Colorado, and this opportunity came up in 2017, and I like the compact. I like what it's doing. I think it's making a difference in people's lives, and so I put my hat in the ring, and they said, we'll let you do it. We started off as an organization very small. There were actually two of us. There was myself and an IT manager, and we're currently up to a staff of 21. So it's grown, and we've been able to expand and become quite an important organization for physician licensure.
Yeah, why don't you explain a little bit about the process of the IMLCC sort of becoming this compact? How did it get started?
Yeah, so it was very the genesis of the organization came about in around 2013. There was a lot of conversation at the time about how difficult it was for physicians to get licensed in multiple states. There was discussion about creating a national license for physicians, all of those kind of discussions. And what happened is the Federation of State Medical Boards brought together a group of state licensing boards and said, is there a way, and they asked one simple question, and that was, what are the common standards of licensure that can be primary source verified by one board where the physician already holds a license that would then be accepted by other boards, and they would then issue a license? And the result was the Interstate Medical Licensure Compact.
Yeah, so it's basically a response to a national license without it being a national license. So we often hear in our recruiting, Betsy and I are part of outreach. So as we're recruiting radiologists to work teleradiology with us, we're always saying things like, make sure you check out the IMLCC because it really expedites the licensure for physicians across state lines.
Maybe we should take a step back and imagine ourselves in a scenario where a radiologist says, I haven't heard of this group, and it's frequent. We want to give you more visibility because the licensing being expedited through your processes is so helpful, and it's surprising how many radiologists are not aware of it when we question them. So if you could tell us a little bit about what are the first initial things that a physician needs to know about getting licenses through your compact?
Yeah, and so I'll start really with laying the groundwork, because a lot of people don't know what the compact is. Or compacts are actually in the U.S. Constitution. There's the compact clause. It's Article 1, Section 10, Clause number 3. Because the federal government, when the Constitution was formed, the founding fathers realized that states needed an ability to solve problems themselves without bringing the federal government in to solve it. Thus, the discussion in 2013 with the FSMB, resulting in the compact coming live in 2017. So the compact is actually a legal contractual agreement between the states, and it allows those states to share and participate in a process that expedites the licenses being issued. The Compact Commission itself is a part of each state government. So physicians can be assured that we're not a for-profit organization. We are a legitimate state. The official term is governmental instrumentality. A governmental instrumentality is a governmental organization that doesn't have police powers. And that's the very simple version of that, meaning that medical boards, they are governmental organizations with police powers. They can enforce their rules and their laws by their own actions. The IMLCC cannot enforce its own rules and laws except through the courts. That's the biggest difference. So this is the way in which we're able to safely, securely, and efficiently allow physicians to get licensed in multiple states, because we are able to allow these states that normally couldn't share this information to share it with each other and to do that sort of thing.
Sure. And what does the process look like for a radiologist, or I'm sorry, a physician who's
Right.
interested in receiving a license across state lines?
Yeah, so the compact has grown quite significantly over the years. We currently have 42 member jurisdictions. That's 40 states, the Territory of Guam, and the District of Columbia. The first thing that the physician needs to do is go to our webpage, which is imlcc.com. There are videos on there so they can watch the process and understand what they need to be able to do, and tutorials that are there. We also have a customer service line that what we like to say at the compact is if you spend more than 15 seconds being frustrated with what you're doing with the compact, you need to call us, because we can help solve that problem. So the first thing the physician has to do is they have to select a state that's part of the compact in which they hold a full and unrestricted license. This is the core of the compact and the core of the compact's efficiency and effectiveness in doing this quickly. So they have to be licensed in one of the states that on our map is blue. By holding that full and unrestricted license, that state has already gathered the majority of the information that's needed for the physician to establish their eligibility. They already know where they went to medical school. They already know their USMLE scores. They already know all of this information, and they hold it primary source verified in their system. So first of all, they select a state from whom they want to be their state of principal license or home state. The physician will always need to maintain a relationship with a state of principal license, meaning that they need to maintain that license. They can switch states of principal license, but they always need to have one. The second is they have to.
Do they have to live in that state of principal license?
That's a great question. There are 4 ways in which a physician can determine a state of principal license and create a relationship with them. The first is that they live in that state. So if you are a state that is part of the compact, live in the state that's part of a compact, and you have a license in that state, that's the fastest and most effective way to use the compact. About 80 to 85% of the people that use the compact use that method. There are 3 other ways that a physician can establish eligibility. The other three are that they work or they're employed in that state where the state or principal license is. So, for example, I think one of the most common ones is that you live in a state. Let's say, for example, because Oregon is not a part of the compact, but Washington is, and let's say you live in Oregon, Portland, Oregon, but you practice in Washington, and you have your office in Washington. Therefore, your employer, or you work for a hospital system in Washington, you can use Washington as your state or principal license because you're employed there.
Great.
You can also, the third method to establish relationship is that 25% of your practice occurs in the state of principal license that you're selecting. That means generally that over the past 12 months that either your patient contacts or your billable hours were 25% of them were in that state. And the final one is the least frequently used, and that is the military provision that basically you use that state for your federal tax purposes.
Interesting. So a lot of our radiologists call in from California.
Can we get them involved?
Yeah, what is going on with California? There's so many medical schools out there, and it's hard to get them licensed. It's hard to get licensed in California. Hard being it's a long process. What's going on with these other 7 states who aren't currently involved?
Yeah, they're not involved, and we want to get them involved.
Yeah. Again, this is the compact is an agreement between the states, and therefore the state has to determine that it wants to participate. We can't force them or make them do that. California continually has not expressed any interest in compacts of any kind in the healthcare field. The interesting sometimes conversation is that they say, well, we don't like or participate in compacts. And the reality is they do. They participate in a lot of compacts. The most common compact is the driver's license compact. That allows you to drive in other states using the license that you're from. So why California doesn't participate, I don't know. They just are not interested. The other states that are not a part of the compact are Oregon, Alaska, New Mexico, Arkansas, North and South Carolina, Virginia, New York, and Massachusetts.
How
And
about Texas?
Texas is part of the compact, and so is Florida.
Great. Okay.
Yep. So if you have a physician who is from one of those states, as you mentioned, California, then they can look at the other 2 options. But if those don't exist, then unfortunately they can't use the compact process.
Okay. As far as the 25% of their practice is in a different state, does that count for telemedicine as well?
Yes. So it's generally looking at billable hours or patient contacts. And so, if you have a radiologist who lives in California, and we'll continue along with that example, and let's say they do 100 contacts in a year. I know it's a lot more than that, but my mathematical brain needs to keep it simple. So they do 100 contacts in a year. 30 of those are in California, 30 of those are in Nevada, and 40 of those are in Texas. They can use Nevada or Texas as their state or principal license because 25% of their practice occurs there.
That's a wonderful tip.
Yeah.
I would have just assumed that if you live in California and you're licensed in California, that there's no route, there's no path to the letter of qualification.
Yeah, and this again, there are options, and it was designed that way intentionally because it is important that physicians be able to practice, and if they're already, the 25% rule and the employer rule really are a recognition that physicians already are. There are a lot of physicians who are practicing in multiple states.
How about a physician that may be between jobs or does not have a current employer? Is there a requirement that, or is there a way that they can participate without currently being employed somewhere?
Yeah, the 25% rule and the employer rule are separated from each other. So they aren't the same. They're two different rules. And the employer rule means that so if you're working in a hospital or a system, then that would be the requirement. The 25% rule is just looking at your patient contacts over the previous year. So if the physician currently is not engaged in actively practicing, they still have a history of what they've done over the previous year that could be used to establish that.
Sure.
How about someone that has been retired for a few years and wants to get back into, for a radiologist example, they want to read imaging and they have not read imaging for more than 2 years. Is that something that the IMLC can work with?
It is. There are 9 requirements that the compact has, and these 9 requirements are the framework by which all of these are the agreements, as I mentioned very earlier, that the states came together and said these 9 things are the things that they would, if they're primary source verified by a state with a license, then they would be accepted in the other states. To your question directly, one of those requirements is not how long they've been out of practice or have not been practicing. And so that's not a factor that's looked at by the compact. You would, of course, advise a physician to make sure their skills are up to date and able to practice, but it is not something that's looked at by the compact. And if you'll give me just a second, I'll tell you these are the 9 requirements. They have to have graduated from an accredited, and I'm going to look to the side, I'm sorry,
Sure.
but they have to graduate from an accredited medical school. They could have taken each step or component of the USMLE or the COMLEX. They had to have passed it in 3 or fewer attempts. They had to have their graduate medical education take place in the United States. It has to be accredited by ACGME or AOA. They have to be board certified by the ABMS or the AOA BOS at the time they are applying. Once they've applied, that requirement goes away. So the initial application, they have to be board certified. They can have no prior convictions or criminal activity, basically gross misdemeanors or felonies. Misdemeanors do not necessarily count unless they're related to the practice of medicine. So they can have no prior convictions or criminal activity. There can be no history of any licensure activities on their National Practitioner Data Bank. They have to have a clean DEA history. They cannot have an active investigation taking place at their state or principal license. And they must agree to and pass an FBI fingerprint-based background check. So those 9 requirements, if they are met by the physician, means that the physician can use our compact process, and that this alternative way to license in a state, these 9 requirements now are the pathway by which a physician gets licensed, and the traditional requirements of a state are no longer, traditional licensure pathway is no longer used.
So if the traditional licensure pathway is somehow different because they've agreed to participate in your compact, they're willing to accept your terms for requirements.
That's correct. And the reason for that is that this is a bill that's introduced in the legislature in the state. It passes the legislature, it's signed by the governor, so it becomes law. It's the same, it has the same legal standing as the traditional licensure process. The example that sometimes I will use to kind of illustrate that in a more everyday sort of situation is everybody, when you go to the airport and you want to get on an airplane, everybody has to go through the X-ray machine. Every physician needs a license to be able to practice in the state where the patient is receiving the care. But in the airport, you can get there one of 2 ways. You can go the traditional way and walk up to the to the belt and take off your shoes and put your laptop on the conveyor belt and all of that sort of stuff and go through the traditional way. Or you can take the time and pay the fees, and you can get yourself pre-qualified, and you can do the TSA pre-way, and then you go right to the X-ray machine. And that's it. A very rough example of the way the compact works. The traditional way is the compact is designed to complement the states and their licensing process. It's not designed to replace it.
Mm-hmm. And everybody still gets on the plane.
And everybody still gets on the plane, and you get to where you're going, and you get to enjoy a soda and peanuts while you're flying.
That's a great metaphor. It actually works. I can adopt that when I'm talking to them. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about fees. What kind of fees can the physicians expect when they are planning to go the way of IMLCC?
Right. There are 3 fees that are paid to the commission itself. It's how we're able to operate and fund our operation. And there are 2 fees that are paid to the member board. And so I'll talk about those in 2 separate parts. So to apply for and participate in the IMLCC process, it costs $700. $300 of that goes to the state or principal license to do all that verification work, to pull the criminal background check, do all of those things. So the IMLCC receives $400 of that, and that's how we're able to maintain our website, do our system, and make this whole process work. So there's $700. What that $700 gets the physician is it gets them the ability to complete their application. It allows them to apply for the letter of qualification. If the state or principal license determines that the physician should get the letter of qualification, that letter of qualification is good for 365 days, which means that they can go back and get more licenses during that time that they want. The first time they select licenses, it's included in that $700 fee. If they go back a second, a third, or a fourth time, they will pay $100 per time that they come back. Not per license requested, but per time they come back and use that letter of qualification.
Is that on top of the fees per state as well?
Yep.
Okay.
And you're
Go ahead.
Great lead in. So the final fee that the IMLCC charges is a $25 renewal fee. So all the licenses, to keep the process in a single place so that the physician can control and manage it from the web page, they will renew all of the licenses that they obtain through the compact, through our website, and we charge $25 for that. So there's a $700, $100, and a $25 fee.
And the $25 fee is on a yearly basis.
No, the $25 is per renewal application that they fill out. So if you have a physician with 5 licenses, when those renewals come up, they will pay $25 for each one of those renewals. Yeah. So there's $25 for renewal, each renewal. There's $100 for each additional license selection opportunity that is based on the opportunity, not the number of licenses selected. And then there's a $700 letter of qualification fee. That $700 never needs to be paid again unless the letter of qualification expires and the physician wants the ability to be able to select more licenses. Now, as you mentioned, it is important to note that the fee that the state charges for a license is also paid by the physician. So we know that on average, the average licensing fee is between $250 and $350. The least expensive license is $69, and the most expensive is $950. So the physician will pay for the licensing fee that the state charges. Those licensing fees are collected by the compact, and 100% of them are passed on to the state board. We do not keep any of the state licensing fees. And then when the license is renewed, the physician pays the renewal cost for that license. The license they're obtaining is a full and unrestricted license, just like they would have gone through the traditional process. So it sets itself up for the same renewal cycle as if it was obtained through the traditional process, and it has the same cost. There's no cost difference for a license, either to pay for it or to renew it for the physician. So they're going to pay the same costs to the state, whether they use the compact process or not.
Mhm.
Does the account setup have any services that it provides for the physicians to keep track of the expiration dates and the renewals and the fees? Are they sent notifications? Do they have email reminders? What types of tools can benefit them to use you as their primary portal for licensing?
Yes. So the primary advantages currently are that it's all done in one place. It's all done in a single application. Um, they pay one when you're going in and you're selecting all of your states. You're going to pay one fee for all of that. We allow ACH and credit cards, all of those kind of conveniences. We also offer our customer service line. We're open from 8 a.m. Eastern time to 8 p.m. Eastern time. And one of the things, I'm glad you brought that up, because it's something we're really excited about, and we will be launching in January of 2025. We've created, with the help of an organization called Mockingbird, what we're calling an enhanced physician portal, or a physician wallet. And what that wallet will do is it will hold, the physician will now be able to, in one place, have all of the licenses that they've ever held, whether they're active or inactive. And if they are active, it will track all of their requirements for them to be able to renew the license. It will send them reminders to say, your renewal is coming up in 2 months and you've done 4 of the 5 continuing education classes that you need to do. It will take those continuing education classes that are common to multiple states and record them for all of the states. It will also allow the state to be able to accept the renewal based on, if the state decides they want to do it, they will be able to accept the renewal because the state will be able to come in and audit that physician's account, so it can reduce the need for duplicate sending, putting your CE information into their wallet, and then also sending it to the member board. And then the final thing that I think will be of great convenience for the physician is that they can actually delegate. They can create delegates within the wallet system that will allow someone that they choose to access and update and load information into their account, to make sure that it's only the physician that is doing the renewal and requesting the license. Only the physician can do that, but they can delegate to someone else that ability to do it. And where we think our wallet is going to be a little bit different than other mechanisms out there is that the delegate will actually have their own login information. So let's say you work for an organization and you're the credentialer for 5 or 6 physicians. That credentialer will have their own login, and then they will be able to pick which physician's account they want to look at and work in, as opposed to having to know the physician's login and password and getting into their account. So it's something we're really excited about. We're just finishing up beta testing. We're gonna put a select group of probably 100 to 150 physicians into the final version in shortly, and coming up in a couple weeks, and then we'll be rolling it out to everybody in January.
That sounds amazing.
It's an excellent tool for
Yes.
credentialers and physicians.
Right.
Is that going to be accessible to the public as well, or is it just for the IMLC
It's just the
members?
IMLCC.
Okay, good to know.
Right. Yep. One of the things that we do, we are constantly doing security audits on our system, where we pay a company a very Well, I'm sorry, let me start again. One of the things that's important to the commission is that our data and information be secure because the physicians are providing us with a lot of sensitive information.
Yes.
We do we pay an organization to continually try to break into our system and to try to do that. And so far, knock on wood, they've not been able to figure out how to do it, and they've not been
Excellent.
successful. And we've been doing those tests for over 5 years. So
That's great.
um, and that's why the information that we do and the processes we put in place, we want to make sure that they're very secure.
Sure. I have a question that kind of takes us back in time. So the compact has been around for about 7 years. Going back in time, that means you were there during COVID. A lot of restrictions were lifted during COVID. How did that affect the company or the compact?
Yeah, I think, um, and it's documented by the numbers too. I like to say that the IMLCC was the right solution at a very, very terrible time.
Okay.
Um, there were, and everybody has great COVID stories, and I'm sure your organization did too. There were things that you were able to step up and make the difference. I think one of the most impactful ones for the commission was there was a small rural health facility that was going to have to shut down because their physician, um, that was the staff physician for that organization had COVID and was not going to be able to, and they weren't going to be able to operate. And working with two different state boards and using the compact process, we were able to get the physician licensed and practicing within 48 hours of um, and the facility never had to shut down. And
Excellent.
so all kinds of those stories are out there and solutions. And really what it did is, I think more than anything, especially for the profession of radiology, and reading images, COVID and the need for multi-state license was accented because the, it's a safe, effective way to treat patients. It's a
Hmm.
safe and effective way that makes sure that people can access care that they normally wouldn't, because a small rural organization can't necessarily afford to have a radiologist on staff, but they can afford to have this service provided to them through these things. So I think COVID made a huge difference, and you can
Hmm.
see it if you look at our numbers. When we first to go back on down memory lane, when there was myself and an IT manager running the organization, we processed 75 applications a month, and we thought, my God, that's just amazing that we're actually doing that. Um, in 2017, we processed we processed 553 applications requesting a letter of qualification. COVID hit in 2020, we processed over
Wow.
5,000 applications. In 2021, we processed almost 7,000 applications. Currently, in 2024, through and through the calendar year, January through October 31st, we've processed 22,402 applications, and we've had over 34,000 licenses issued just this year. We are
Wow.
now at the
Great.
point where we've had 117,926 licenses issued since 2017.
Excellent. So you are able to help physicians provide the care to the places that don't have the physicians and the specialties they
Right.
need. It's a
The other
wonderful
the other thing,
service.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just saying, it's a wonderful service to have. Thank you for everything that you do.
Well, I think it's the other thing that's happened is, as this has been created, organizations such as yours have figured out ways to use the compact that we had never ever envisioned or never had thought about. And one of the things, and if you'll let me give an example of that, a center of excellence that provides kind of unique care. treating cancer patients, or they run a lot of studies, or they have unique and deal with rare and unusual diseases, have always kind of been restricted in the patients that they can bring on board, because they can't, either the patient can't travel to where the center is, or they're in a state where the physician isn't licensed. And what we've seen in a lot of these centers of excellence is that they've actually changed the way that they qualify patients, expanding their patient eligibility pool, and they've changed the way that they do their post-care. Because what they do is they actually get the physician licensed where the patient is located using the compact process. The patient, instead of traveling back and forth to where the center is, they go to their local healthcare provider, whether it's a nurse practitioner or a physician. The physician from the Center of Excellence, they do a virtual call, they do a virtual treatment, they do the evaluation for that patient remotely. It trains up the physician or the nurse practitioner in how to recognize and treat the disease, but it also lets them screen them. So the patient really only needs to make the trip, have their treatment done, and then their post-care is done remotely. Of course, if it's got to be medically warranted and whatever, but these organizations have found ways to do that. And I know too that in the image reading field, the radiology, you found ways to do that too, to find a quick, efficient way to get someone licensed so they can provide care where they need to.
Sure.
Just to give you a little overview on Excalibur and what we do, we are 100% teleradiology, so you can immediately see why multiple state licensing services like the IMLCC are so beneficial to us, because we are able to help any facility, medical imaging centers, health systems, critical access hospitals, wherever they are in the country. If we receive requests for help, we now have this tool that makes it so much easier to have our radiologists get a letter of qualification, and it makes the access so much quicker to get the radiologist reading imaging in the states that need it. And with the radiologist shortage, I don't know if you're aware, there's a radiologist shortage. It is allowing us to help facilities wherever they may be get access to more radiologists more quickly. And I would think too that when you were talking about patients and where they live, the states that are in the compact must love how they're able to say that they can get care to their constituents. I would think that politicians probably like it. It's a little confusing why some states don't adopt it, because it just seems like a win-win situation for everyone.
Yeah, I think you're hitting on a very good point, and that it is a win for the state. There was an independent study done by 3 professors at San Jose State University that we have on our webpage. They studied the compact. We weren't even aware that they were looking at us. But they did this independent study, and they found that a state joining the compact is the single most effective measure a state can do to increase the number of practicing physicians in their state. The other thing that study found is it almost seems counterintuitive, but most states that don't join the compact think, well, if we join the compact, all of our physicians we're going to see this drain of physicians going somewhere else. And this independent study, which was an academic done by 3 professors of economics at San Jose State University, what they found is actually the opposite happens when states join the compact. And we've also been able to confirm that with licensing data from our states, that when a state joins the compact, they see an increase in the number of physicians and practices in a state. And those licenses they see an increase in the number of licenses coming through the compact, but they also see a corresponding increase in the number of licenses issued through their traditional method. And they see coverage in parts of their state increasing that that for years and years had seen declines in coverage. And so organizations such as yours that provide these sorts of services go into these states, and you're adding to the physician population of the state. You're solving their shortage problems as opposed to draining them out of the state. So I think it is really one of those win-win kind of things, and it's important that people, especially the legislators and the politicians, that in doing their job of protecting the public and taking care of their state, realize this is an effective way to do it. And not only that, it's a safe way to do it. A lot of states during COVID tried the reciprocity concept, which is where if you're licensed somewhere, you can come and practice in our state. And while the compact doesn't have a position on that, our process, these are highly trained, highly skilled physicians that have been practicing for a long time. It's a high bar, safe standard. I like to point out that we have over 26, it's getting close to 27,000 physicians that have used the compact process. Of that, there are only 56 physicians who've been disciplined since they joined the compact process for a variety of reasons. But this is a talented pool of physicians that use the compact, and they do it effectively and efficiency. One of the stories that I wanted to share from it came from an organization, and I'm sure you would be able to have similar sort of stories. The compact process expedites the license to such a degree that physicians can get a license if they have an active letter of qualification, which is why most physicians that use the compact always keep an active letter of qualification. They get licensed from as many states as they want within 7 to 10 days. We have one state that issues licenses within 48 hours.
Wow.
So
I think I can guess the state.
yeah. So yes. What that means is, in practical terms, that this organization told me is, if they have a physician with an active letter of qualification, they can get that physician on average working and providing care within 10 days sooner than if they did it any other way, including physicians who may or may not have held a license in that other state. But so just by using the compact, they can get that physician practicing in 10 days sooner. And if that physician on average sees 10 patients a day, that's 100 people whose lives are changed and are able to receive care that they wouldn't have before. And then when they have an organization such as yours, which has a substantial number of physicians that are part of it, you take that 100 and you start multiplying it out. It really does make a difference. And I say that really as a point of pride about what my organization does, but it's also recognizing the incredibly hard work that these state boards do, because they still issue that license. They still are required to do their process, get it into their system, publish that physician is now practicing in their state, and issue that license. So a big shout out to those boards, because it allows them to, a shout out to our member boards, because they do an incredible amount of work, and they recognize the need to get those licenses out. And so they're able to do that. So
Do most states hire people to specifically be an office of processing applications that are related to the IMLCC? Is that what part of the $300 fee to the state helps to pay for?
Well, and that's a great point too, because what most states have found is that they are hiring additional staff, not because to create separate for the compact, but because they're seeing an increase in the number of licenses that they need to process. And what most of our boards have been able to do is, because the compact process is all of the information they need to issue the license comes in a single package, and the boards, so they're actually their staff are able to process them quickly and more effectively. And so they need fewer people to process the compact applications because they can do them quicker and they're more effectively. But then what it's done, and what several of our boards have reported to us, is then it allows them to refocus their licensing staff on those other applications that really do need the trained expert to look at, to review, and that have come in through the traditional way. So they found by being part of the compact, they're processing more applications, but because of the efficiencies they're finding in the IMLCC process, they're able to then process these other applications even faster. And so a lot of our states have shown reduced time in processing their traditional licenses too. So it really is a win-win. I think it's a good thing that's out there and happening.
Yeah, I like hearing that from you. Anecdotally, radiologists have been able to get licensed within days. 36 to 48 hours have been some. But when we say it, it isn't coming from an authority, and a radiologist might be like, come on, 48 hours is amazing, but it really does happen. I'm glad that you're saying that, because we witness it, and to have you confirm it, it helps us.
Mm-hmm. We had there was an organization that found out about the compact and started using it, and they actually, I said those words, and they said, well, we'll see. And so I encouraged them, and they did. They did a test. They did 5 physicians using the compact process, and they did 5 physicians using the traditional process. And I don't remember the exact results, so please don't hold me to these exact numbers. But basically what they told me that was within 45 days, the 5 physicians that used the compact process had all of their licenses and were practicing in those states. And the other 5 physicians were still waiting on licenses.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And they applied to the same states. They kept their study as fair as they could. And so I think we do a good job. Are we perfect? Absolutely not. Are we the silver bullet to solve all the licensing problems for physicians? Absolutely not. But I think we are a good solution, and we're a safe alternative.
Mm-hmm. And what you've done is expand access to quality care throughout the country. What else? That's what we need.
Yeah, I'm very proud of it.
I'm curious. I like that you are governmental versus commercial. There are commercial services that tout helping physicians get licensed more quickly. When you came onto the scene, are you a disruptor? Are you offering a better solution than the commercial options that physicians have traditionally used to help them with their licensing? Or are you somehow another benefit to them because they can help with the application process as well to the IMLCC?
So I think we're actually complementary, and there are several of those services, as you mentioned, that use they've actually been able to help physicians do it even quicker because they're using our process, and I think that's great. I mean, there's really no issues with who's using our process or why they're using it, because it in the end it ultimately benefits the patient and increases the care. So another way to say that is I don't see us as in competition with them. I see us as actually being able to complement and help them be able to do that. If a physician feels that that's an important way for them to get licensed and they want to pay those for that service, I think it's great. And hopefully we can help them out.
I can see that as a benefit. For our own credentialing office, I have a question. This might not have to go on the public podcast, but how can our credentialing specialists in our office assist physicians that want to use the IMLCC, and what components of the application process can be assisted with people in our own office helping our radiologists to use your process?
Yeah, actually, there is. They can help the physician do everything except for sign the application.
Yes. Okay.
But so, and I would again encourage you to let me quickly get the number. Our customer service number is 303 997 9842. 303 997 9842. And as I said, they're open from 8 a.m. Eastern to 8 p.m. Pacific time. And I said this earlier in the podcast, if they're spending more than 15 seconds, they need to call us because we
Sure.
can help walk through them. We've also been able to help, in situations, we do not process the license. There is no such thing as a compact license. That's all done by the state. But sometimes there are situations where a physician needs a license and they need it quickly. You can reach out to our staff. They'd be happy to reach out to that board staff and see if there's something that can be done. Oftentimes there's nothing that can be done, but maybe that is. So I would say really to your staff, go out to our webpage, play around in it. If you want training, we're happy to do this sort of presentation, talk about that, introduce your staff to our customer service staff. And I guess the bottom line or the quickest answer to all that is if you have a need or you have a question, ask it, and would be happy to try to figure out how to solve it or answer the question.
This was made, and I might not be using the right phrases, but it was asked of me by a physician recently. If you are mid-application with the IMLCC, and I'm comparing this to if you apply directly with a state and you withdraw the application, from what I understand, it goes on record that you have withdrawn your application from that particular state. How is there something similar with applying through the IMLCC if they begin the application process and then withdraw? Is there any type of flag or record made that there was an application process that did not go to completion?
No. And that's where our process in a sense is beyond the state, which is why it's set up the way that it is. It's not a state application until it's been completed. So even an application, let's say you have a physician who applies and they are found that they're not eligible for the letter of qualification. That's never reported to anyone or anywhere.
Okay.
We maintain the record, news. Obviously, but yeah, there are no negative consequences to having a letter of qualification determined to be the physician not to be eligible, and there's also no negative implication put out there about an application that's withdrawn or failed, not completed. The exception is that our fees are non-refundable, so we don't refund the money. So you would pay the $700. We've actually set our system up so that you complete the application, then you pay the $700, and it won't let you complete it if you're not qualified.
Okay, that would have been my next question. So you will know that you're qualified before you have to pay any money. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
I guess.
Do you have any more questions, Laura?
I don't. Do you have? I think we've covered everything. It really brings to light the. Hold on, sorry.
Her ears bob.
My headphones falling out. No, this has been a really great, informative conversation. I've learned a lot about the IMLCC, and I'll continue to tell our radiologists about it who are seeking employment across state lines.
Yeah.
Great.
At the risk of sounding like a geek, I love hearing about this. I can't wait to tell more of our radiologists about it and future radiologists that are interested in working with us. This is something that the more we know about it, the more useful we can make our radiologist team.
And
So
that
thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
thank you. I agree. I geek out on this stuff too because I think it does make a difference, and it really is. I think I constantly say I have the best staff in the entire country working for us at the commission, and really our goal is to help physicians, because if by helping those physicians, we are providing access to care, and that access to care is saving lives and changing people's lives. That's critically important. And what you do is equally important. You're saving lives, you're making the difference, and that's great work.
Thank you.
Where's your office located?
We're located in Littleton, Colorado,
Okay.
just outside of Denver.
Okay,
Great.
if I happen to be there, maybe I'll swing by.
Oh, I would love that. That'd be great.
Okay. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
All right,
Thank
thank you so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
I love this. Might be my favorite podcast.
Really?
Not just because he was friendly and a great guest, but I think it probably contained some of the most useful information that we've ever offered.
Thank you for listening. If you have anything that you would like to add or share to this conversation, be sure to get in touch at www.radcentralpodcast.com. RadCentral is a production of Excalibur Healthcare. Like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. From all of us at Excalibur, have a great week.